right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to join me for this live presentation of 5 dashboard pitfalls I learned from home ownership and a few ways on how to avoid them. If you've joined me for other lives on my YouTube or LinkedIn before, I have been having a few technical issues, so I'll try to keep an eye on that as we go through this presentation. Please get active in the chat and the comments. I will try to stay on top of those. And let's go ahead and get started. All right. So here we're here today to talk about 5 dashboard pitfalls I learned from home ownership. And before we do that, I always like to kind of start with a question. So how many folks on the call, you can react by emoji or comment, have purchased a home before or are planning to one day? Or maybe you've helped a friend or family move into a new place. Well, no matter what the situation is, you know what a totally chaotic but exciting and overwhelming experience it can be. All right. So last year, my wife, Olivia, and I, we purchased our first home. And within a few weeks, we became very clear to us that home ownership comes with its fair share of learning moments. For this presentation, we'll call them pitfalls. And I was living through them. Things like mismatched paint, rooms that didn't work the way that we imagined, and even some other issues that came up, like drilling into a water pipe. Anyone else on the call have similar experience before? Well, this, turns out to be a funny story. It was one of those projects where we just wanted to hang a quick little shelf, something that should maybe take like 5 to 10 minutes. This turned up into basically like a 2-hour patch job, running to Home Depot multiple times. In the end, we totally fixed it. Had a lot of help along the way. But we've learned a lot of mistakes in owning. We've learned a lot from the mistakes that we've made in owning our home, and some of these mistakes I've been able to relate to building dashboards. So today I'm going to walk you through these 5 pitfalls that I've learned the hard way, and I'll teach you some ways on how to correct them. So before we jump into that, just a quick intro. My name's Eric Ballish. I'm a senior BI analyst at Navy Federal Credit Union, where I support the Member Strategy Office. My job is to help turn data into clear, actionable insights into dashboards, and making sure that our leadership actually understands what they're seeing. In addition to that, outside of my regular 9 to 5, just in the Tableau space, I've been recognized as a Tableau visionary for the past 2 years, and I'm a 5-time Tableau Public Ambassador. And I've actually started a Tableau a data community project called Back to Viz Basics, which is a weekly community challenge that helps people sharpen their Tableau skills through approachable, fun prompts. If you haven't joined us, please do so. It's a great way to up your skills in Tableau. And I go live on YouTube and LinkedIn and show you how to do these challenges every 2 weeks as well. I also host a podcast called Data After Hours, where I talk with data pros about who they are beyond their work and how they get started, what motivates them, and what they do for fun. And like I mentioned before, husband to Olivia, and we have a wonderful poodle named Loki, who I usually show in a picture here, but I forgot to upload one for this presentation. So here's our agenda for today. So I'm going to walk you through 5 of these biggest dashboard pitfalls. We'll talk about too much stuff. This can be related to hoarding, clutter, and just boxes everywhere in your house. We'll talk about mismatched decor. Does this rug I have from college go with the new Pottery Barn chair? Think about how we can relate that to our dashboards. A beautiful room untouched, something that's modern and chic, but useless. I think we all have a room like this in our house. Unlabeled boxes, just no context. I don't know what or where anything is. And waiving the home inspection, thinking about testing and validating our dashboards. Just don't do it. Don't waive the home inspection, but you should. You should validate your dashboards. So let's get into our first one, organization. All right, too much stuff. So when we moved into our house, we thought that we really downsized. We really did. I thought we cleaned out a lot of stuff from our townhouse that we were moving from, but every moving company that we came over to give us kind of a quote, they were like, wow, you guys have a ton of stuff. So even after the movers dropped everything off, I was like, man, we really filled up this new house quickly. We have so much stuff. And thinking about how this can relate to dashboards, right? They can have the same problem. Do you ever open up a dashboard that has 20 charts crammed into one page, maybe tons of filters going down one side? You have about 20 KPIs, five different color legends, and no clear story? Well, that's dashboard clutter and it happens a lot. So, how can we fix that? Well, when I think about organization when it comes to dashboarding, I like to think about applying the Marie Kondo method. So, if a chart doesn't spark insight, we should remove it. So here's some of my kind of three tips, and we'll get into a few other ways on how to improve them in a second. But be concise, less is more, right? We want to avoid clutter by only displaying essential information. We should make sure that all of our charts have a clear, direct labels, and we should be using tooltips or drill downs for additional details. When we're thinking about colors, we want to use simple colors and objects for clarity, so sticking to one to two dominant colors throughout our dashboard. Ideally, your brand palette, and we'll talk about that in a second. But when every chart has its own color scheme, right, it's kind of chaos. We should be removing grid lines, tick marks, and axis labels where they're not adding value. This is something that I kind of see a lot in dashboards when I open them up. Is just a ton of overuse of labels and axes and grid lines and things like that. And sometimes they're a little bit darker. So playing around with the colors if we want to add them for that context. And then we should be focusing on high impact metrics, prioritizing what matters, ordering our dashboards from the most important to the least important in terms of charts and insights. So putting our key metrics where the eye naturally goes, right, and kind of across the top or down that left-hand side. That's where they communicate to our users that they're most important. All right, so let's take a look at an example here. So in just a second, we're going to jump into this dashboard that we see on the right. But just like our houses need spring cleaning, this is something that we're already into summer now, but something that I need to get started on here a little bit. Just like our homes need spring cleaning, so do our dashboards. So if you don't need it, toss it. Get rid of items that don't serve a purpose. Designate specific spots for essential items throughout your dashboard, and making sure that you're keeping your design and decor focused. So let's jump into the dashboard here that we have. So this is a dashboard from Ellen Blackburn. She's a Tableau public author. This is her demo insurance dashboard. Ellen is in my top 2 or 3 Tableau public authors. If you have not checked out her page, I suggest you do so. She has a great eye for design, and you just know when you're on her page that everything that you look at is just so well organized and just so thoughtfully done as she builds out her designs here. So just notice how the use of color is controlled, right? We're showing where things are going down, it's purple, and where things are going up, it's kind of giving us that negative color palette, the orange. Everything is designed to a grid, right? Our KPIs, the width of them, each 3 of them equals the width of the boxes below, and then those 4 charts, or those 4 sections, are the same width and height throughout the dashboard. So just thinking about designing to a grid and how we can use padding and spacing to really make sure that things are aligned. I think that's one thing that I typically find a little bit distracting when I open up some other dashboards where, maybe one chart kind of goes into the middle of another one, or it's just things aren't lined up perfectly and your eyes have to kind of jump all over the place. So just thinking about how we can better organize our dashboards. Everything that she's doing here, you can tell is intentional in terms of her layout, and she's designated specific spots. So even though there's a ton of data packed into this dashboard, to me, it doesn't feel overwhelming or confusing. It's very simple and easy to follow. And I also love how she has a designated panel going down the left-hand side for her navigation objects, her settings and filters, and other information like that. So very well organized dashboard. And this is something that we should keep in mind as we try to update ours. Consistency. Let's go on to number 2. This can relate to mismatched decor. So we were so excited to decorate, but right, this goes back to my my example from before in the agenda slide. But the old rug from college, right? Does that really match with the new Pottery Barn chair that my wife purchased for our house? No. So decorating can be challenging. Thinking about just how to create a consistent room where all the colors and the couches and the fixtures that you add all work together. So dashboard design works the same way. Mismatched fonts, clashing colors, poor alignment, everything can just feel off. So we want to make sure that we're staying consistent in our design. And when I think about this and can relate it to our home, right, I like to learn from HGTV. They are great at just, flipping a room and turning it into something that looks totally brand new, but everything just fits together, right? I love those shows. Things like Property Brothers or other shows on HGTV where they just show the before and the after, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's the exact same place, but it looks totally different. And I love doing that with dashboards. Exact same data, but just look when we apply some of these simple methods, how it can look totally different and really elevate our design. So, inconsistent branding, mismatch home design styles. Could you imagine going into a home that has kind of a farmhouse style kitchen, modern industrial living room, and then like a boho chic bedroom? Everything just feels like a little bit disjointed, right? So, by aligning our color elements, such as consistent color palettes that pull from our branding, everything starts to feel a little bit more cohesive, right? So using our company colors, our fonts, logos, every organization has a marketing style guide. We should be leveraging that in our dashboards to incorporate our logos, our branding colors, because at the end of the day, consistency is what builds trust. So if we can make sure that our dashboards have kind of a consistent look and feel, you'll start to build trust in your data, you'll start to build trust in your audience, and you'll definitely see an increase in usage in your dashboards. Jumping over to the right hand side, so talking about overuse of color, clashing paint and decor choices. Do you ever just, some rooms that you walk into, it's like a bright blue color or like a bright orange color, and it's like, oh gosh, they're like that Easter egg color. I don't know. Sometimes it's just like you walk into these rooms with an accent wall, and it's so much accent. So, too many bright colors can be a little bit conflicting in a dashboard. We want to make sure that we're using a negative color for alerts and a positive color for growth. So, trying to think about those that might have different varying levels of color blindness. So, making sure that our dashboards are accessible in terms of color as well is also important. All right, so let's take a look at this dashboard. So the one that I have here up on the screen, I actually presented this, I think, 3 years ago at Tableau Conference. So this was kind of our before view, and nothing really wrong with this design. It, calls out some interesting KPIs, has a decent layout to it, but look at that big chunk of white space on the bottom right corner. Something just seems off there. Also, I don't know what's going on with the two info icons. Uh, we have a lot of bold font throughout the dashboard. And then I always like to ask the question, well, what does the color blue mean? Is it our conversions per month rising in the area chart? Is it the bar chart in the top right? Or is it that specific value in the top left? Right? So being consistent with our colors. We're also using green and red in the bottom left. And when we're thinking about making sure our dashboards are accessible, making sure that those have different varying levels of color blindness are able to make a distinction between the colors that we're choosing. So let's see how we can flip this dashboard, just like we can flip a house, to be a little bit more consistent. So now we're using 1 to 2 dominant colors throughout our dashboard, right? We're using that dark blue to show emphasis and call out the highest value in our charts. Now all of our icons and our KPIs are formatted the same. They're all consistent. So the same font color, the same size, a filled icon, not a mix match between a filled icon and an outline of an icon. Our webinar conversions title has moved into its own section versus being in the same line with our KPIs. And we've designed to a grid, similar to what we saw in Ellen's dashboard, right? So thinking about using our consistent colors, using our branding colors in here in this dashboard, right? Everything just has this now consistent look and feel to it. I'm going to talk about Ellen Blackburn again. This is the last time I'll talk about her, but like I said, consistency builds trust. When we look at Ellen's Tableau Public profile, when we blow that up here on the right-hand side, just look at how consistent all of her dashboards are. You could put one of Ellen's dashboard in a lineup of 100 and I would be able to go in and pick it out, right? She has her own branding, her own color style that she uses, and that builds trust throughout her dashboards. I know when I open one up that I can, I, you know, I have trust in what Ellen put together because everything is consistent. Everything has that cohesive feel. I know all of her calculations and everything are going to be correct because she's taken the time to build that branding and that trust in her dashboards. So definitely Ellen Blackburn is somebody that you want to follow on Tableau Public if you are new to Tableau Public as well. All right, let's talk about number three, functionality. So, beautiful room untouched. Um, I talked about this at Tableau Conference, and I got a good reaction from the crowd. But uh, did you ever just walk into a room and or in a house, and there's kind of that front sitting room right when you walk into the foyer, and it looks like a beautiful sitting room. I would enjoy going in there and having some cocktails and listening to a record, but uh, it's untouched, right? No one ever goes in there, right? You always have this idea of, oh, we're gonna have tea or drinks or coffee in the this front sitting room, but no one ever uses it, right? I think most houses have a room like that, and so I think about that in terms of dashboards as well, because we need to make sure that they're functional. Static dashboards are great, but if they're not allowing our user to kind of get to those deeper insights or filter the way that they need to pull out specific things for their job, right, the functionality isn't really going to be there, and people aren't going to want to use that dashboard. So making it personal so we can get those deeper insights. So let's talk about a few ways that we can do this. So dynamic dashboards are going to deliver more value. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with a static dashboard. They're definitely needed maybe for those kind of KPI scorecards, snapshots, but if we're able to make them a little bit more interactive for our user, right? Just like a functional room that we want to use, we want our users to use a dashboard as well. All right, so customization, thinking about filters, tooltips, drill downs, right? Is this room both adult and kid friendly? Is this dashboard usable for my C suite, but maybe also usable for an analyst, right? So thinking about how we can drill down from kind of that executive level view into more of like an analyst detail view. Right, maybe they're separate workbooks. That's totally okay as well. But giving our users and thinking about our audiences and how we have to kind of tailor our dashboard to who's going to be using them. Do we need to add a filter here? Do we need to have a little bit more context for my non-technical users? Right, better decision making, right? I think about when you walk into a room and you know exactly where things are going to be. Well, I know that my keys are going to be over here. I know that the remote should be here, right? I want to have the same feel when I go to a dashboard. I don't want to have to search where my filters are if I've put them in a show hide container in like the bottom right corner, right? It should be intuitive to my users on where we can find things. Chantilly Jaggernoth, who's a Tableau visionary Hall of Famer, used to be my boss, and one thing that she used to always say is, if my grandma can't use the dashboard, then it's not a good dashboard. And I think about that all the time because, right, for us that are in Tableau every day building out dashboards, we know where things are, we know how things work. But for our less technical user, we might not be sure, they might not be sure of how to use Tableau or how to use a filter, what a parameter is, or how to circle things and filter, right? So we need to be giving them the context that they need to make better decisions throughout the dashboard. And this kind of plays right into being more engaging and interactive. Static dashboards are great, but if we can make them dynamic to encourage exploration, that's going to help our users, get to more meaningful insights and produce more action from the data that they're looking at. And this relates into kind of that front sitting room of, is there anything to do other than sit? So since we've had, no one goes to that front sitting room in our house, we've added a record player, we've added some games in there, and some picture books and other big books, right? That way, it's a little bit more functional and there's a little bit more to do. All right, so we're going to take a look at three different dashboards here. So when we're designing our dream home, we need to be holding space for a functional and user-friendly design. So we want to prioritize user control, thinking about our open concept living, enable context exploration, so thinking about smart storage and hidden features, as well as keeping things intuitive and performance and optimized, so having a functional and flowing layout in our homes. So let's take a look at these three examples here. So I'm going to hop into this video. Yep, it is playing perfect. This is a HR diversity scorecard designed by Tableau Public author Autumn Batani. And what I love about this dashboard is thinking about user control and flexibility. As the end user, I'm able to drill into this scorecard and filter and change things how I want to look at it. So I can filter for my diverse employees, my female employees, my POC employees, but then I also have the ability to change the targets. I can open and close the different high level metrics into the other metrics that make them up. So now we're drilling into performance. And then I can change the target of that performance. So as the user, I am customizing this dashboard for my needs. I'm making it accessible for myself so I can see, um, where things are changing. Oop, trying to get back to the image here. Well, we'll just go on to the next one. Right. I love that that dashboard example here. Jumping into our next one, thinking about enabling contextual exploration, smart storage, and hidden features. This is a Tableau dashboard by Nurse Milga, an OKR's overview dashboard. This is the same dashboard, but just two screenshots of the views next to each other. And I believe this uses um, some dynamic zone visibility, but basically, right, we have our different objectives, our OKRs across the top. And then as I click into each one, on the same dashboard, it's popping up with all the metrics that make those or that contribute to that OKR. And I love just the amount of detail that's packed into this dashboard, and just whether and how it shows if we're performing, if we're overperforming or underperforming. So I just love the way that this is laid out in terms of the color, but thinking about how we can add show hide containers or use dynamic zone visibility to kind of create those the hidden contextual insights. I think about it as I've seen some Instagram reels of someone having that KitchenAid mixer in like a hidden cabinet in their island, and then they can pull it out and it comes out, right? It's like such a cool feature to me. But thinking about how we can kind of use those hidden features within our dashboards as well. So we don't need to have, a lot of different, dashboards to show our data, right? We can think about how we can kind of consolidate it into a single view and really create that user experience around our dashboards. All right, and our last point here, keep it intuitive and performance optimized. This is another Tableau Public author, Pradeep Kumar G. He sits in my top 3 as well as Tableau Public authors to follow. This is his web traffic dashboard for digital marketing. And like I said, a home with an intuitive layout makes life easier, and so does a dashboard. And I love the flow of high level metrics with a percent change and the trend over time, breaking out those metrics into a little bit of a deeper, getting a little bit more into the details here. So I love the way that Pradeep designs his dashboards, and he goes from those high level insights into a little bit more detail. So this is just a great example of having a functional and flowing layout within our dashboards. All right, hopping into number 4, context, thinking about unlabeled boxes. Um, so when we first moved into our home, I thought we labeled most of our boxes, but there were a few mystery ones, just things that just didn't have anything labeled on it. Or, right before Tableau Conference, I needed to find zip ties, and I cannot find the zip ties anywhere. Turns out they were, labeled in a box that was basement. And, I think about how this can relate to our dashboards, but dashboards without context and helpful labels can do the same thing to users, right? If we're not labeling our metrics or providing a little bit of framing, our users are just going to be guessing at what they're trying to analyze here within the dashboards. And that's going to make them disengage and maybe make incorrect decisions. This is a fun little example. Could you imagine trying to build IKEA furniture with no instructions? Right? That would just be a terrible experience. And if we think about relating that to data, what does this chart mean? Does it mean how much my wife spends on Amazon every day? Does it mean the amount of Instagram reels I watch every day? Hopefully not. I would definitely need a phone detox. Or is it some college students' exam scores? I think the average is right around 100 there, so that'd be pretty good, I guess. Well, that's why context is key. We should be labeling our charts, giving our users clear annotations, titles, and labels. That way they know what they're looking at. But when we're doing that, we also want to make sure that we're keeping our labels concise but informative. We don't need to have this huge long sentence. We don't need to have all this extra text, right? Our users are going into our dashboard to pull out insights. They don't want to sit there and have to read a whole paragraph on how to use the dashboard or anything like that, right? We want it to keep it quick, especially within our business dashboards that we're designing. Incorporate tooltips for additional details. Having a Vision tooltip to show, break out a metric into a little bit more of a detailed view that we necessarily didn't want to put in our dashboard to save space is a great idea. Adding other metrics to our tooltips, but again, thinking about number one in our clutter, right? We want to make sure that our tooltips are relevant. We don't need to just dump everything into them just for the sake of adding other insights. Use reference lines and benchmarks. Maybe something that I don't see a lot within Tableau dashboards, but right, maybe showing like an average line or a trend line, or having a benchmark within our dashboard so we can show, what's our performance to goal, or are we over or under the typical average for this metric? And then color coding those thresholds as well, but making sure that those colors are accessible. All right, so let's jump into our example here. And I'm going to blow this up in a second, but this is one of my favorite examples this is from Varun Jain, another Tableau Public author, and this is his multi-product users dashboard on Tableau Public. But his dashboard doesn't just show data, it explains how to use it. He has a lot of toggle switches that switch to the logic. They give you inline definitions and tooltips that walk you through the user experience. So this is a great example of kind of like a dashboard overlay that he's showing right now. It's showing you how the calculations are calculated. It's showing you how to look at and take insights from each section. So kind of having like this overlay user guide is a great way to just add a little bit more context to our dashboards. So let's take a look at this just blown up a little bit higher. So I love the information going down the left-hand side and how to read the different product combination charts. We have the ability to switch between, if we're looking in the middle section there, we can select the join type. So do we want to show a combination of this and that, or a combination of this or that? So I love that we can change that. We have a product filter in the bottom right-hand corner, so a parameter to switch between and filter for our products. And then if we click in the top right, it says, right, click for definitions and navigation help. So let's take a look at that. So he kind of creates this user guide story throughout the dashboard to take us from step 1 through step 5, right? Learn how a product combination is represented. Number 2, the top level KPIs provide an eagle's eye view of the multi-product usage. And then what I love about number 3 is he's telling us how it's calculated. So I'm not just saying to my user, well, here's this metric. I'm telling them this is how this metric is calculated. And right, if we're able to give a little bit more to our users, that can be a huge win, because it's going to help them build trust in the data. But then it's also going to create a little bit more of that less back and forth, where we have to, always answer these questions about, well, how is this calculated, or what are you using to do this, right? Giving our users all the tools that they need to make informed decisions in our dashboard. So great example. This is one of the most beautiful dashboard overlays that I've seen on Tableau Public. So big shout out to Varun for this one. All right, let's talk about number 5, testing, waiving the home inspection. I feel like this is a new trend that I'm hearing a lot of. I think, the real estate market is a bit competitive, high interest rates, house prices are pretty high. So I feel like folks are just doing whatever they can to get into a house. And sometimes that is waiving the home inspection, which is just silly. Could you imagine waiving the home inspection and you get into your home and you just find out that half the outlets don't have power, the AC stuck at 60, and honestly, that sounds a little bit nice to me. I like the house cold, right? But it's just something that we shouldn't do. So we also want to make sure that we're thinking about our dashboards when it comes to testing and QAing things, right? We don't want to skip that phase. So if we don't do that and we just publish something out and nothing works, again, I keep saying this, but we want to build trust in our data and our dashboards. And if we're putting something out there that isn't functional or doesn't work as people think, they're not going to want to use our dashboard. Anyone ever publish a dashboard or share out a dashboard and it looks like this? I thought it was going to do this instead. Is it supposed to look like that? Nothing works. Right? I love when I send a dashboard as just like a regular Tableau file, and I don't send it as a Tableau extract, TWBX, and someone opens and it's like, oh, I don't have access to this. I don't have this data. I don't have it saved. Where do you have this, right? So really making sure that we're kind of checking all the boxes before we hit publish and send out to our users. So just like our homes need inspections, our dashboards need them too. So these are kind of all the things that I like to think about when before I hit publish and save and communicate that to my end users. So data accuracy and validation, making sure that all numbers, calculations, aggregations are correct by cross-checking with the data source. Functionality and interactivity, we should be testing our filters, our drill downs, our tooltips to confirm they work as expected. If I click on this chart and I say, click on this chart to filter the dashboard, is it filtering it as expected? Performance and load time. We want to make sure that our dashboard loads quickly, and it's effective and efficient. We'll dive into this in just a second, a little bit deeper. Our user experience and navigation. Ensure the layout's intuitive. Labels are clear. Users can easily find the information that they need. This is, something that I think is really kind of separates just a regular dashboard from one that's really good. So really thinking about that user, the end user, and having that user-friendly design throughout our dashboard. Responsiveness and capability. Test the dashboard on different devices. This is something that we don't think about a lot when it comes to Tableau. Most of us just design dashboards for desktop, and often we forget to delete the phone layout. So if somebody thinks about opening the dashboard on their phone, you might want to take a look at that. But right, thinking about, is this dashboard going to be displayed on a TV? Does it need to be tablet and mobile friendly? That requires a lot of extra work. And so it's something that we need to be thinking about when, kind of early on in that design and discovery phase of building dashboards. Do we need to consider building something like this that's responsive on different devices? Security, access, and control. Verify that users only see the data that they're authorized to view and that sensitive information is properly protected, right? Making sure that the right user groups have access to the dashboard. Again, even making sure that people have access. I can count, or I shouldn't say I can count on my hands. I can count over, just how many times I've had a dashboard shared with me and it's like, oh, I don't have access to this. So really making sure that we're crossing our T's, dotting our I's when it comes to security and access control. Let's dive a little bit into just Tableau's option for performance monitoring. This is a great way just to check to make sure that your dashboard is performing and is performance optimized. So this is a dashboard that I shared out right before Tableau Conference. I think this is my activity tracker. This is on my Tableau public profile. I actually got a visit of the day last week, which was pretty cool. But you can, within Tableau Desktop, click on Server and then run Optimizer. And what this is going to do is it's going to analyze your workbook performance. It's going to provide some actionable recommendations and help ultimately improve your load times as well. So this is what it looks like in my second screenshot here. So you can see here that I have 4 items that need review. So it's calling out my numbers of view in a dashboard. It looks like I have 19 views or worksheets within my dashboard. And well, that might seem high. I've seen ones that have more that still run well, but so it just kind of comes down to the testing and making sure that things are updating it as they should. So something to think about, and I love that Tableau at least calls it out for me. Calculation length. Looking at one of my calculations, it's over, I think, 504 characters long, which is like pretty long. So maybe that's something that I want to revisit and just make sure that that's still, performing at the speed that it should. Number of LOD calculations, and then multiple connections in a data source. I do have data coming in from 3 different sources here within this dashboard: my Aura Ring, my Smart Scale, and my Apple Watch. But this is only Q1 2025 data, so there's really only about 90 rows of data in each data source. So even though it's coming in from multiple data sources, I know that it's still set up in the right way. But then it also tells me that 16 items have passed. So I love that this is an option within Tableau. This is something that we should always be doing and checking before we share out our dashboards. All right, so let's put it all together. So owning a home and building a dashboard is a learning process. So just to review our 5 tips and how to apply it to your dashboard. Organization, don't be a hoarder. Structure your dashboard with a logical flow, placing the most important insights front and center, and just having kind of that clean and organized layout. Consistency, make design decisions intentional. Consistency builds trust. So we want to maintain a uniform color, font, and layout to kind of create that cohesive look and professional style throughout our dashboard. And that's really going to help enhance our readability. And again, consistency, that'll help build trust for our end users in our dashboard. Functionality, Enable ways to make it easier for the user to explore the data. So incorporating things like filters, tooltips, but they should be, they should work seamlessly with our data, so users can really kind of get down into those different actionable insights that they need to do their job. Context. Let's not forget the IKEA instruction nightmare, right? Making sure that all of our charts have a clear title, label, annotation, benchmarks, percentile, right? All that type of stuff. That's going to help users understand what the data means and why it matters. And finally, testing. Don't skip that home inspection. Always validate for data accuracy, test the usability, and check performance before launching to ensure a smoother user experience. We don't want to share out a dashboard that somebody doesn't have access to. I suggest when you get back to work, take a look at your dashboards. And if any of these pitfalls sound remotely familiar, maybe it's time for a dashboard renovation. So kind of putting it all together, just as building a home requires careful planning and solid foundation, thoughtful design, functionality, comfort, building a dashboard requires a structured approach as well. So we need reliable data sources, intuitive visualizations to provide real value. So a house is made of bricks and beams, and a home is made of hopes and dreams. A dashboard is crafted with tables and lines, but insights are built with patterns and signs. So, just a very cheesy phrase here to kind of wrap us up, but by kind of understanding the parallels, we can approach dashboard development not only as a technical task, but as an opportunity to build something that's not only functional, but also impactful and enduring for our users. So thank you all for spending part of your day with me today. I hope this presentation helped you think about dashboards you build in a fun and exciting way, and hope you had a few laughs as well, and were able to relate to some of the home pitfalls that I shared. If you want to keep the conversation going, this is all the great places that you can connect with me on. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, X, Blue Sky. I do have a YouTube channel that this is live streaming on. This is also live streaming on LinkedIn as well. And if you're interested in participating in the community project that I mentioned in the beginning, check out the Tableau Student Guide website. We have tabs on there for Back to Viz Basics, as well as the Data After Hours podcast that I have. So with that, thank you again all for joining me today. It was a pleasure to have you on. Please don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. Please share this out with anyone that you find that could use information like this. And if you have any questions, again, shoot me a message. Another great way to connect is on the new Tableau community Slack that launched during Tableau Conference. And I wish I called that out in the slides, but that is open and free to all users. So please check that out. And I hope to see you there. Thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.